In a dimly lit Manhattan diner at 2:47 a.m., a billionaire leans across a cracked vinyl booth and whispers 5 words that will destroy everything. Stay silent and you'll be rewarded. But the shy waitress he's threatening, she won't stay silent. And when she finally speaks, her words will trigger a federal investigation, expose a financial empire built on lies, and reveal a secret so explosive that even his own family will turn against him. What this powerful man doesn't know yet is that the quiet girl refilling his coffee has been recording everything. Before we go into this shocking love and betrayal story, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10. Your engagement helps us bring you more incredible true stories like this one. Layla Carter's hands trembled as she wiped down table 7 for the 3rd time that night. The fluorescent lights of Mel's all-night diner buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across her tired face. At 22, she looked younger, all wide brown eyes and nervous energy, the kind of girl who apologized for existing. "Order up!" Danny, the night cook, slammed a plate of lukewarm eggs onto the pass. Layla jumped. Even after 8 months working the graveyard shift, sudden noises still made her flinch. She grabbed the plate with shaking fingers, balancing it carefully as she navigated between empty booths. The diner was nearly deserted. Just old Pete nursing his 4th cup of coffee in the corner, and the businessman in booth 12 who'd been making hushed phone calls in what sounded like Arabic for the past hour. Kareem Al-Fayed wasn't supposed to be here. Men like him, with $1,000 watches and bodyguards waiting outside in black SUVs, didn't eat at greasy diners in Brooklyn at 3 in the morning. But there he sat, his perfectly tailored suit looking alien against the cracked red vinyl. Layla had seen his face on the news. Oil, tech, real estate, the kind of wealth that bought silence and buried scandals 6 feet deep. "Miss." His voice was smooth, accented, commanding. "More coffee." She approached cautiously, the pot heavy in her trembling hands. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his dark eyes, the tension in his jaw. Whatever had brought him here, it wasn't good news. As she poured, she caught fragments of his phone conversation. Numbers that didn't make sense. Names she didn't recognize. And then, clear as crystal, "The transfer happens tomorrow. Make sure there are no witnesses." The coffee pot slipped. Hot liquid splashed across the table, soaking his expensive napkins. "I'm so sorry." Layla's voice cracked as she grabbed for towels, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm such a klutz, Stop." His hand closed around her wrist. Not painful, but firm enough to freeze her in place. His eyes searched her face, calculating. "How much did you hear?" Nothing. I wasn't listening. I swear. I was just..." "Sit down." It wasn't a request. Layla's knees buckled, and she found herself sliding into the booth across from him. Her heart hammered so loud she was sure he could hear it. Kareem ended his call with a sharp word in Arabic. The diner fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Pete's occasional cough. "What's your name?" "Layla. Layla Carter." "Layla." He tested her name like he was sampling wine. "Pretty. You live around here?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Family?" "My brother in Chicago." "Struggling?" The question hit like a slap. Of course she was struggling. Why else would she be here at 3 a.m. serving coffee to insomniacs and night shift workers? "Community college," she whispered. "Tuition's due next month." Something shifted in his expression. Not kindness, calculation. "I'm going to tell you something, Layla Carter." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Sometimes in life we see things, hear things that aren't meant for us." Her mouth went dry. Smart people understand that forgetting can be profitable. Remembering, on the other hand. He let the sentence hang in the air like smoke. Old Pete shuffled to the restroom, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. They were alone now, just her and this dangerous man with his dangerous words. "Stay silent," Kareem said, his eyes never leaving hers. and you'll be rewarded. The words hit her like ice water. This wasn't happening. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. But they were happening. She watched, paralyzed, as he pulled out his phone and made another call. This time he spoke in English, his voice carrying the casual authority of someone used to being obeyed. Yes, it's handled, no loose ends. A pause. Trust me. She understands the situation. Layla wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. This man, this billionaire, was talking about her like she was a problem to be solved. When he hung up, the silence stretched between them like a chasm. You seem like a smart girl, Layla. Smart girls make good choices. He stood, straightening his jacket. I'll be in touch. As he walked toward the door, she found her voice. Wait, what if I don't want to be rewarded? He turned back, and for the first time that night, he smiled. It was the coldest thing she'd ever seen. Then you'll discover what happens to people who make poor choices. The door chimed as he left, and suddenly Layla could breathe again. But the relief was short-lived. Through the window, she watched one of his bodyguards approach the diner. He didn't come inside. Instead, he stood there, watching her, waiting. The message was clear. We know where you work. We know where to find you. Layla's hands shook as she cleaned up the spilled coffee, her mind racing. She'd stumbled into something bigger than herself, something that made powerful men visit diners at 3 a.m. and speak in code about witnesses and transfers. But what terrified her most wasn't what she'd heard. It was what she hadn't heard yet. Because in the corner of the booth where Kareem had been sitting, forgotten in his haste to deliver his threat, lay his phone. Still recording. Still capturing every word of a conversation that would change everything. She had no idea this moment would change everything. Most people miss the warning signs that could protect them. Subscribe so you're never caught off guard like Layla was. The phone buzzed. A text message lit up the screen. The senator confirmed the vote. 20 million transferred to the Cayman account. Clean up any witnesses by morning. Layla's blood turned to ice. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was evidence. Layla stared at the phone in her trembling hands, the screen still glowing with evidence that could topple governments. $20 million. A senator. Cayman accounts. The words burned into her mind like brands. Clean up any witnesses by morning. She was the witness. Her shift ended at 6 a.m., but she couldn't move. Every shadow outside the diner looked like a threat. Every car that passed made her heart skip. The bodyguard had finally left around 4 a.m., but the feeling of being watched lingered like smoke in her lungs. Danny poked his head out from the kitchen. You okay, kid? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, she lied, slipping Kareem's phone into her apron pocket next to her own. The weight of it felt like carrying a loaded gun. When her replacement arrived, Layla practically ran to the subway. The morning commuters pushed past her, everyone lost in their own small worlds, oblivious to the fact that she was carrying evidence of crimes that could shake Wall Street to its core. Her apartment in Queens was a cramped studio above a bodega, but it had never felt more like sanctuary. She triple-checked the locks, drew the curtains, and sat on her sagging mattress with both phones spread before her. Kareem's device was top of the line, password protected, but the text messages on the lock screen told the whole story. Names she recognized from business news, government officials, numbers that made her dizzy. Her own phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her blood froze. Hello, Layla. She recognized the voice immediately. Smooth, accented, deadly calm. You have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you mean. The lie came out as a whisper. My phone, Layla. I left it in the diner. Such carelessness on my part. A pause. I trust you haven't looked at anything you shouldn't have? Every instinct screamed at her to lie, but something in his tone suggested he already knew the truth. I saw the messages, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Silence stretched between them like a taut wire. When he spoke again, his voice carried a new edge. "I'm disappointed I gave you a chance to be smart about this. I won't tell anyone, I swear. I just want to forget this ever happened. Oh, Layla, you can't unring a bell." "But—" His tone shifted, becoming almost paternal. "Perhaps we can find another solution. Are you at home?" Terror shot through her spine. "How do you—" 1247 Northern Boulevard, apartment 4B, above Chen's Market. You've lived there for 11 months. Your rent is $200, which is $400 more than you can really afford." The phone slipped from her numb fingers. He knew where she lived. He knew her finances. He knew everything. A knock at her door made her jump so hard she nearly fell off the bed. "Layla?" A woman's voice. Delivery for Layla Carter. On shaking legs, she approached the door. Through the peephole, she saw a professionally dressed woman holding a manila envelope. I didn't order anything." "From Mr. Al-Fayed. He said you'd be expecting it." With trembling fingers, Layla opened the door just wide enough to take the envelope. The woman smiled, a cold, practiced expression, and walked away without another word. Inside the envelope was more cash than Layla had ever seen in her life. $100 bills, neatly banded. A note written in elegant handwriting. "Your tuition. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. There's more where this came from, but only for those who understand the value of discretion. K." Layla sank to the floor, the money scattered around her like fallen leaves. $20,000. Enough to pay her tuition, her rent, maybe even help Marcus with his problems in Chicago. Blood money. Her phone rang again. "Kareem. Did you get my gift?" "I can't take this." "Of course you can. And you will. Because, Layla, you have bigger problems than student loans now." "What do you mean?" "Check the news. Channel 7. With numb fingers, she fumbled for her remote. The morning news was just starting, and the lead story made her stomach drop. Federal agents raided 3 Manhattan businesses overnight in connection with an ongoing investigation into international money laundering. Sources close to the investigation say they're looking for evidence of a corruption scheme involving high-ranking government officials. The reporter continued, but Layla couldn't hear over the roar in her ears. The businesses being raided, she recognized the names from Kareem's text messages. The raids were triggered by an anonymous tip, the reporter said. Investigators believe someone with inside knowledge came forward. Layla's phone was still pressed to her ear. She could hear Kareem's breathing. Someone talked, Layla. Someone who shouldn't have. Now, I'm not saying it was you. You've been home all morning after all. But, his voice dropped to that whisper again. If I were you, I'd be very, very careful about who I trusted, including the police. The line went dead. Layla stared at the cash scattered on her floor, understanding dawning like a sick sunrise. He'd given her the money not as payment for her silence, but as evidence of her guilt. If anyone investigated, they'd find $20,000 in cash in her apartment. Money that could be traced back to him. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was an accomplice. A sound from outside made her freeze. Footsteps in the hallway, stopping at her door. Then another sound that made her blood run cold. Someone trying her door handle. She held her breath, watching the handle turn slowly. The locks held, but barely. Whoever was out there didn't knock. They didn't announce themselves. They just tested the door like predators testing a cage. After what felt like hours, the footsteps retreated. Layla crawled to the window and peered through a gap in the curtains. A black sedan sat across the street, windows tinted, engine running. She wasn't just being watched anymore. She was being hunted. The money on her floor suddenly felt like evidence at a crime scene. She stuffed it back into the envelope with shaking hands, her mind racing. She couldn't keep it, but she couldn't get rid of it either. Kareem had made sure of that. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother Marcus. Hey sis, lost my job today. Landlord's threatening eviction. I know you're struggling too, but if you have anything. Marcus, her only family. The person she'd been trying to protect by working double shifts and eating ramen for dinner every night. $20,000 would save him, but taking it would damn them both. Layla thought she was safe, but danger was already closing in. If you're not subscribing, you're missing the signs that could save you. Don't be left vulnerable. As she stared at the envelope, another text came through. This one from an unknown number. We know about the money. We know about the phone. If you want to live through this, you'll do exactly what we say. But it wasn't from Kareem. Someone else was watching. Someone else knew her secret, and they wanted something very different from her silence. Outside her window, the black sedan's engine stopped. Car doors slammed. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell, growing closer. Layla grabbed both phones and the envelope of cash, her survival instincts finally kicking in. She had maybe 30 seconds before they reached her door. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, forgettable, the kind of person who apologized for taking up space. But invisible people could disappear. And right now, disappearing was the only thing that might keep her alive. The footsteps stopped outside her door. This time they didn't bother with the handle. They brought a key. Layla's fire escape had never seen this kind of action. She slipped through her bedroom window just as the apartment door splintered open behind her. Her hands, slick with sweat, nearly lost their grip on the rusty metal ladder as voices filled her studio. She's gone. Check the bathroom, check everywhere. Boss isn't gonna like this. She pressed herself against the brick wall, barely breathing, clutching the envelope of cash and both phones to her chest. 3 stories down, the morning rush of Northern Boulevard provided perfect cover as she dropped into the alley behind Chen's Market. Mrs. Chen looked up from sorting vegetables as Layla burst through the back door. Layla? What's wrong? You look... Can I use your bathroom? Emergency? Layla gasped. Mrs. Chen waved her through, concern creasing her weathered face. In the tiny restroom, Layla stared at her reflection. Wild hair, tear-streaked cheeks, the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd stumbled into a nightmare. She needed help. But who could you call when the police might be compromised and a billionaire had marked you for death? Her phone buzzed. Marcus again. Sis, are you okay? Haven't heard from you. Getting worried. She typed back with shaking fingers. Fine. Don't come to NY. Stay in Chicago. Promise me. Why? What's going on? Before she could respond, footsteps echoed through the market. Heavy boots, official voices. NYPD. We need to ask some questions about your upstairs tenant. Layla's blood turned to ice. Through the bathroom's frosted glass window, she could see the flashing lights of police cars outside. But were they here to help her or hunt her? She climbed out the window into the narrow space between buildings, her nursing school anatomy classes finally proving useful as she squeezed through gaps that would challenge a cat. 20 minutes later, she emerged 6 blocks away at a McDonald's, looking like she'd been through a blender. The teenage cashier barely glanced up as Layla ordered coffee she couldn't afford and claimed a corner booth. For the first time since the diner, she had a moment to think, to plan. Kareem's phone held evidence that could bring down senators, but it also made her a target. The cash made her an accomplice. And now someone else, someone with keys to her apartment, was in the game. She needed leverage, information, an ally. The phone buzzed. Unknown number again, but not the same one from before. Ms. Carter, this is Detective Carla Mendez, NYPD Financial Crimes. We need to talk. Layla's heart hammered. About what? About why your name appeared in connection with the Al-Fayed investigation, and about why several dangerous people are looking for you. I don't know what you're talking about. A pause. Layla, listen carefully. I'm sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks from where you are right now. I've been watching you since you climbed out of that bathroom window. And if I can find you, so can they. Through the McDonald's window, Layla spotted a woman in a tan coat waving from across the street. Tall, Latina, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. How did you find you? Security cameras, traffic cams, and a very good guess about where scared young women go when they need to think. Also, you used your debit card for that coffee. Rookie mistake. Layla cursed under her breath. Can you see anyone else watching me? Layla asked. Two men in a gray Honda, license plate starts with 8 Alpha. They've been following you since you left the alley. You've got maybe 5 minutes before they make their move. Layla's mouth went dry. What do you want? To keep you alive, and to put some very bad people in prison in that order. Detective Mendez stood, still visible through the window. There's a subway entrance on 47th. Take the R train to 36th Street. I'll meet you at the Sunset Park Library in an hour. Come alone and Layla. Yeah? Bring everything you took from the diner. The line went dead. Layla looked around frantically and spotted them. 2 men in suits pretending to read menus while watching her reflection in the window. The trap was closing. But Detective Mendez had given her an out. Layla slipped into the bathroom, then out the back exit, using the same window escape technique that was becoming her signature move. The subway was crowded enough to provide cover, and she made it to Brooklyn without incident. Sunset Park Library felt safe. All that institutional fluorescent lighting and the comforting smell of old books. Detective Mendez was waiting in the true crime section, because apparently someone had a sense of humor about this whole nightmare. You're harder to catch than most criminals I chase, Mendez said without looking up from a book about mob accountants. Am I in trouble? That depends entirely on what you tell me in the next 10 minutes. Mendez closed the book and fixed Layla with a stare that could cut glass. Start with the diner. What did you see? Layla had practiced this lie for hours, but under Mendez's gaze, the truth spilled out like water from a broken dam. The phone call, the whispered threats, the phone left behind. You have his phone? Mendez leaned forward. Layla nodded, pulling both devices from her bag. And the cash? Another nod. Jesus Christ. Mendez rubbed her temples. Kid, you're not just a witness. You're evidence. Walking, talking, very vulnerable evidence. What does that mean? It means Al-Fayed can't let you live. But it also means we can use you to bring down his entire operation. Mendez's eyes gleamed with the kind of intensity that made careers. If you're willing to help. What if I'm not? Then you'll be dead before sunset, and a lot of bad people will keep doing very bad things to innocent people. The weight of it all, the corruption, the murders, the scope of what she'd stumbled into, crashed over Layla like a wave. She wasn't just some scared waitress anymore. She was the key to everything. What do you need me to do? First, we're getting you somewhere safe. Al-Fayed's people are good, but they're not better than federal witness protection. Federal? I thought you were NYPD. Mendez smiled grimly. I am. But this case just went national. Maybe international. Those text messages you saw? They mentioned senators, foreign accounts, and enough money to destabilize governments. Layla's head spun. I just wanted to pay my tuition. And instead, you're about to help take down one of the biggest corruption rings in U.S. history. Mendez stood. But first, we need to talk about your brother. Marcus, what about him? He got a new job 3 weeks ago. Good pay, benefits, the works. Want to guess who his employer is? The bottom dropped out of Layla's world. No. Meridian Holdings, Shell Company. Guess who owns it? Oh God. Kareem Al-Fayed didn't just threaten you, Layla. He embedded himself in your family. Your brother isn't just leverage, he's been working for the enemy this whole time and he has no idea. The trap was perfect, and Layla walked right into it. Subscribe before you miss how ordinary people get caught in powerful people's games. Layla stared at Mendez, the implications hitting her like physical blows. Marcus wasn't just in debt, he was compromised. Every phone call, every text, every family photo he'd shared could be intelligence for Kareem's people. We have to warn him. We will, but carefully. If Al-Fayed suspects Marcus knows the truth, your brother becomes a liability instead of an asset. Meaning he disappears. Permanently. Layla's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Good news, got a promotion. Flying to New York tomorrow to meet the big boss. Can't wait to see you. The blood drained from her face as she showed Mendez the message. Tomorrow? Mendez cursed under her breath. That's not a promotion, kid, that's a summons. To do what? To clean up loose ends, starting with his sister. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Kareem. Family reunions can be so touching, especially final ones. Outside the library window, Layla spotted a familiar black sedan, then another. They'd been found again. But this time, she wasn't running alone. Detective Mendez was already on her radio, calling for backup, calling for federal support, calling for everything she had, because they weren't just hunting a waitress anymore, they were hunting the woman who could bring down kings, and the kings were hunting back. The federal safe house in Brooklyn looked like every other row house on the block. Peeling paint, iron bars on the windows, and the kind of anonymity that made it perfect for hiding witnesses who knew too much. This isn't exactly the Ritz, Detective Mendez said, unlocking 3 different deadbolts. But it's bulletproof, and Al-Fayed doesn't know it exists. Layla stepped inside, clutching the envelope of blood money and Kareem's phone like talismans. The house smelled like disinfectant and fear. Apparently, she wasn't the first terrified witness to call this place home. How long do I have to stay here? Until we can guarantee your safety, or until you testify. Mendez tossed her a burner phone. Your brother lands at LaGuardia in 6 hours. We need to intercept him before Al-Fayed's people do. But even as Mendez spoke, Layla's stomach sank. Something was wrong. Marcus wasn't answering her calls, and his last text had been too cheerful, too excited about meeting his mysterious boss. 3 hours later, her worst fears were confirmed. We lost him, Agent Torres, Mendez's federal contact announced as he burst through the front door. His flight landed early. Someone picked him up at baggage claim before our people got there. Who? Layla's voice cracked. 3 men in expensive suits. They knew exactly where to find him. Torres's expression was grim. Your brother didn't resist. He went with them willingly. Of course he did. Marcus trusted people. It was his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. Layla's burner phone rang. She knew who it was before she answered. Hello, Layla. Kareem's voice was warm, almost paternal. I have someone here who wants to talk to you. Layla? Marcus's voice flooded through the speaker, confused but unharmed. Thank God. These guys said you were in trouble, that someone was trying to hurt you. They're taking me somewhere safe until... The phone was pulled away. Kareem came back on the line. Your brother is such a trusting soul. We're taking excellent care of him. Let him go. He doesn't know anything. Oh, but he knows everything that matters. Where you grew up. Your habits. Your fears. Your weaknesses. A pause. For instance, he told us all about your recurring nightmares after your parents died. How you still sleep with the lights on. Terror crawled up Layla's spine. Those were secrets she'd shared with Marcus during their darkest moments, when they only had each other. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Your silence, and my phone. I can't. Let me be more specific. His voice turned arctic. You have until midnight to bring me what belongs to me. Union Square Park, northwest corner, come alone. And if I don't? Then your brother will learn what happens to people who work for me and become redundant. The line went dead. Layla stared at the phone, her hand shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. We can't let you do it, Mendez said immediately. It's a trap. The moment you show up, he'll kill Marcus if I don't. He'll kill you both if you do. Agent Torres leaned forward. We have a counter-proposal. You wear a wire, meet with Al-Fayed as planned, but we'll have eyes on you the entire time. That's insane. You want to use me as bait. We want to end this. Torres pulled out a laptop showing her surveillance photos of Kareem's operation. This man has laundered money for terrorists. He's funded coups in 3 countries. He's had 17 people murdered to protect his secrets. 17 people. The number hit Layla like a physical blow. How many more will die if we don't stop him? Torres continued. How many more sisters will lose their brothers? How many more families will be destroyed? Layla closed her eyes, seeing Marcus's trusting smile, remembering their promise to protect each other no matter what. If I do this, if I wear the wire, you can guarantee he goes to prison? With the evidence on his phone and your testimony? Life without parole. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus's number. Layla, please help me. I'm scared. They're not who they said they were. But the message felt wrong. Marcus never texted in complete sentences. He used abbreviations, emoji, the scattered grammar of someone always in a hurry. That's not from Marcus, she said slowly. Mendez looked at the message. How do you know? He doesn't text like that. Someone else sent it. Another text arrived, this one from Kareem's personal phone. Your brother is running out of time. Tick-tock, Layla. Then, a third message. A photo. Marcus, tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. His face was bruised, his shirt torn, but his eyes held fury instead of fear. Even captured, even beaten, her brother was still fighting. But it was the figure in the background that made Layla's blood freeze. A woman. Tall, elegant, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Layla made in a year. She was holding a gun with the casual familiarity of someone who'd used it before. Layla recognized her from business magazines. Rebecca Holt, the rival businesswoman who supposedly suspected Kareem of fraud. Oh my God, Layla breathed. What? Mendez grabbed the phone. She's not his enemy. She's his partner. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Rebecca had approached her at the diner weeks ago, playing the concerned whistleblower, gathering intelligence on what Layla knew. She'd been watching, waiting, preparing. Every potential ally had been compromised. Every escape route had been blocked. And now they had Marcus. It changes nothing, Torres said grimly. Actually, it makes our case stronger. We can get both of them. With my brother as collateral damage? Sometimes innocent people get hurt in war, Ms. Carter. The casual dismissal of Marcus's life ignited something inside Layla she didn't know existed. A rage so pure it burned away her fear. No, she stood up. I'm not sacrificing my brother for your case. Then what are you going to do? Mendez asked. Layla looked at Kareem's phone, at the evidence that could topple governments, at the blood money that had made her an accessory to crimes she couldn't pronounce. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. Layla, don't. And then I'm going to destroy them all. She pocketed the phone and headed for the door. Where are you going? To get fired from my job. Again. He turned her own brother into a weapon against her. Subscribe if you want to see how the innocent fight back against impossible odds. Mel's diner looked the same as always. Fluorescent lights buzzing, coffee burning on the hot plate, the eternal smell of grease and broken dreams. But when Layla walked through the door at 11:47 p.m., everything had changed. Danny looked up from the grill, his face creased with worry. Layla! Jesus, kid, where have you been? FBI was here asking questions. Then some corporate types showed up and fired you. Said you were a security risk. I need to use the phone. You can't be here. They said if you came back. Danny! Layla's voice carried a new authority, forged in the crucible of the last 48 hours. I need to use the phone, please. He nodded, stepping aside. Layla dialed the number from memory. When Kareem answered, his voice was smug with victory. I thought you might call early. Union Square, 1 hour. I'll have your phone. And I'll sign whatever paper says I never saw anything, Never heard anything. Never existed. Smart girl, come alone or... I know. Marcus dies. She hung up and turned to find Danny watching her with sad, knowing eyes. You're walking into something bad, aren't you, kid? Yeah. She managed a weak smile. But I'm also walking out of it. As she headed for the door, Danny called after her. Layla. Yeah? Your parents. They'd be proud of how you're fighting for your brother. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and stepped into the New York night. 1 hour to save Marcus. 1 hour to destroy an empire. 1 hour to prove that sometimes the quietest voices roar the loudest. But first, she had one more call to make. Detective Mendez, it's Layla. I changed my mind about the wire. Thank God we'll be ready. No, you don't understand. I don't need the wire to record what happens. What do you mean? Layla smiled for the first time in days. Kareem's phone has been recording everything since I found it. Every conversation, every plan, every confession. How is that possible? Voice activation mode. He never turned it off. In the background, she could hear Mendez shouting orders, mobilizing teams, preparing for the takedown of the century. Layla, you brilliant crazy. See you at Union Square, detective. She hung up and hailed a taxi. Time to end this. Union Square at midnight was a stage set for the final act of Layla's nightmare. The park's northwest corner sat bathed in amber streetlight, casting long shadows that could hide federal agents or assassins with equal ease. Layla arrived 15 minutes early, clutching Kareem's phone in her jacket pocket. Her finger rested on the recording app she'd discovered, the voice activation feature that had been capturing everything since that first night at the diner. Hours of conversations, confessions, and criminal conspiracies, all stored in digital evidence that could topple governments. You came. Kareem emerged from behind a statue of Gandhi, flanked by 2 bodyguards who looked like they bench-pressed motorcycles for fun. I wasn't entirely certain you would. Where's Marcus? Safe, for now. He extended his hand. My phone. Layla's grip tightened on the device. I want to see him first. Kareem smiled, the same cold expression she remembered from the diner. You're hardly in a position to make demands, my dear. A black van pulled up to the curb. The rear doors opened, revealing Marcus bound to a chair inside, Rebecca Holt standing behind him with a gun pressed to his temple. Layla! Marcus's voice cracked with relief and terror. Don't give them anything. Whatever they want, don't... Rebecca struck him across the face with the gun barrel, silencing him. Your brother has been quite vocal about your integrity, Kareem said conversationally. It's touching, really. Misguided, but touching. Rage flooded Layla's system, burning away the last remnants of her fear. Let him go, and I'll give you the phone. I'm afraid it's not that simple anymore. Kareem's tone shifted, becoming businesslike. You see, you've caused quite a bit of trouble. Federal agents asking questions, inconvenient investigations. My associates are concerned. I haven't told them anything. Haven't you? Rebecca stepped out of the van, keeping the gun trained on Marcus. We know you met with Detective Mendez. We know about the safe house. We know you've been singing like a canary to anyone who will listen. That's not true. It doesn't matter what's true, Kareem said. It only matters what people believe. And right now, too many people believe you're a threat. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. They weren't here to make a trade. They were here to clean up loose ends, both of them. You're going to kill us anyway, Layla said. I'm going to eliminate problems. Kareem checked his expensive watch. Rebecca, if you would be so kind. Rebecca raised her gun toward Layla. It's nothing personal, dear. Just business. But Layla was already moving, diving behind the statue as the first shot rang out. Concrete exploded beside her head, fragments cutting her cheek. Take her alive, Kareem shouted. We need to know who else she talked to. Layla scrambled deeper into the park, using trees and benches as cover. Behind her, she could hear heavy footsteps and shouted orders. They were hunting her like an animal. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Detective Mendez. "Where are you?" Mendez's voice was tight with tension. "Running for my life in Union Square," Layla gasped, ducking behind a maintenance shed as another shot shattered bark from a tree beside her. "We're 30 seconds out. Keep moving." "They have Marcus. If you move in now—" "Layla, listen to me very carefully. We've been monitoring Kareem's phone, the one you have. We heard everything." "What do you mean?" "The recording function you discovered? It's been transmitting to our servers in real time. Every word, every confession, every incriminating statement. We have enough evidence to convict him 10 times over." Hope flared in Layla's chest. "So you can arrest them? We already have teams surrounding the area. But we need you to do something first." A flashlight beam swept past her hiding spot. They were getting closer. "What?" "Get him to confess, on record, in his own words. Make him admit to the murders, the money laundering, all of it." "Are you insane? He's trying to kill me." "You're the only one who can do this, Layla. You're the only one he'll talk to." Gunfire erupted nearby. Shouts echoed through the park. Time was running out. "How?" "Do what you do best. Be invisible. Be forgettable. Make him underestimate you one last time." Layla closed her eyes, centering herself. The scared waitress was gone. In her place stood something harder, forged in fire and tempered by rage. She stepped out from behind the shed, hands raised, Kareem's phone held high. "I give up," she called out. The shooting stopped. Footsteps converged on her location. Kareem appeared first, his perfect composure finally cracked. Sweat beaded his forehead, and his suit was rumpled from the chase. "Smart girl," he panted. "Now the phone. First, I want to know why." Layla kept her voice steady, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "Why all of this? Why ruin so many lives? Why?" Kareem laughed, a bitter sound. "Because I could. Because power without the will to use it is meaningless. The senators you bought, the people you had killed, was it worth it? Every single death, every bought vote, every laundered dollar." His eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. "I built an empire from nothing. I controlled presidents and toppled governments. Men like me don't apologize for greatness." Rebecca joined them, Marcus stumbling behind her at gunpoint. Her brother's face was battered, but his eyes were alert, watching for an opportunity. "Enough talking," Rebecca snapped. "Finish this." But Kareem was on a roll now, his ego demanding recognition for his crimes. "Do you know how easy it was to buy your politicians? How pathetically cheap they were?" He pulled out his own gun. "Senator Morrison, 50,000 for his vote on the oil pipeline. Congressman Hayes, 100,000 to kill the banking regulations. And the people who tried to stop you? Accidents, all of them." His smile was pure evil. "That journalist in Miami who got too close to the truth? Car accident. The accountant who tried to blow the whistle? Heart attack. Modern medicine is wonderful, so many ways to die naturally." Each confession was another nail in his coffin, captured in perfect digital clarity by the phone in Layla's hands. "You killed 17 people," she said. 18, actually. You're forgetting the prosecutor in Chicago." Kareem's arrogance was absolute now. "I am untouchable, Layla. I have files on everyone who matters. Blackmail material that reaches the highest levels of government." "Had," a new voice said from the shadows. Detective Mendez stepped into the light, her gun drawn, federal agents emerging from concealment all around them. "You had blackmail material, past tense." Kareem spun, his face twisting with rage. "This is impossible. I own half the people in law enforcement." "Not anymore." Agent Torres appeared beside Mendez. "Funny thing about corruption, eventually it eats itself." Rebecca raised her gun toward Marcus, desperation replacing calculation. Nobody moves, or the brother dies. "Rebecca Holt, Mendez called out, her voice carrying the authority of justice itself. "You're surrounded. Put down the weapon. I'll kill him." "No," Layla said quietly. "You won't." She pressed a button on Kareem's phone. Suddenly, Rebecca's own voice filled the park, broadcast from the device's speakers. "It's nothing personal, dear. Just business." The recording continued, playing back every word, every confession, every admission of guilt from the past hour. Rebecca's face went white as she heard her own voice admitting to murder, to conspiracy, to crimes that would put her away for life. "How?" Kareem breathed. "Voice activation mode," Layla said. "You never turned it off. Every conversation, every phone call, every whispered threat, all of it recorded, all of it evidence." The phone continued playing, a greatest hits collection of criminal confessions. "I have files on everyone who matters. Every single death was worth it. I controlled presidents and toppled governments." Kareem's empire wasn't just falling. It was being demolished by his own words, his own arrogance, his own inability to imagine that a shy waitress could outthink a billionaire. "You," he snarled, raising his gun toward Layla. "This is all your fault." "No," Marcus said, finally finding his moment. He drove his elbow back into Rebecca's ribs, breaking free and tackling her to the ground. "This is all yours." Gunshots exploded in the night. Federal agents swarmed the scene. When the chaos settled, Kareem lay on the ground, his gun several feet away, blood spreading from a shoulder wound. "Kareem Al-Fayed," Detective Mendez said, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. "You're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, money laundering, and about 50 other charges we'll figure out later." As they loaded him into the back of a police van, he looked at Layla one last time. "You have no idea what you've done," he said. "The forces you've unleashed. This is bigger than me." "Maybe," Layla replied. "But it had to start somewhere." The doors slammed shut, and Kareem Al-Fayed disappeared into the justice system he'd spent years corrupting. Rebecca was already in another van, her designer dress torn and stained, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Marcus wrapped his arms around his sister, both of them shaking with relief and exhaustion. "How did you know?" he whispered. "About the recording?" Layla smiled, thinking of that first night in the diner when everything changed. Because sometimes the quietest people hear the most. As dawn broke over New York City, the news was already spreading. Federal raids across 3 states, arrests of politicians, businessmen, and criminals. The collapse of a corruption network that had infected the highest levels of government, and at the center of it all, the testimony of a shy waitress who refused to stay silent. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked as they walked away from Union Square. Layla looked at the sunrise painting the sky in shades of hope and possibility. Now we go home. And we rebuild." Behind them, Detective Mendez called out, "Layla, we'll need you to testify. Are you ready for that?" Layla turned back, no longer the frightened girl who'd served coffee to monsters in the middle of the night. "Detective," she said, her voice carrying the strength of someone who'd found their purpose, "I've been ready my whole life." The empire had fallen, and it had taken just 5 words to bring it down. Stay silent and you'll be rewarded. But Layla Carter had chosen something better than reward. She had chosen truth. And truth, as it turned out, was louder than money, stronger than power, and more dangerous to tyrants than any weapon ever forged. The shy waitress was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silenced. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the greatest weight. She spoke, and it was enough to bring down a king. 6 months later, Layla stood outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan, watching the news vans pack up their equipment. The verdict had come down an hour ago, guilty on all counts. Life without parole for Kareem Al-Fayed. Rebecca Holt got 25 to life. The empire that had seemed untouchable was now a memory, its assets frozen, its network dismantled, its victims finally vindicated. "How does it feel?" Detective Mendez appeared beside her, looking satisfied but tired. The investigation had consumed her life for months. "Strange," Layla admitted. "I keep expecting him to call, to threaten me one more time. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Supermax prison has a way of humbling billionaires." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city flow around them. New York had moved on, as it always did, but the ripples of that night in Union Square were still spreading. Senator Morrison had resigned in disgrace. 3 CEOs were behind bars. A Supreme Court justice was under investigation. The Justice Department had opened corruption probes in 12 states, all because a shy waitress had refused to stay silent. "What will you do now?" Mendez asked. Layla smiled, thinking of the acceptance letter in her purse. Full scholarship to Columbia Law School, funded by a victims' rights foundation. Apparently, bringing down corrupt billionaires looked good on applications. Learn how to fight legally instead of just desperately. The world needs more lawyers like you're going to be. Marcus appeared from inside the courthouse, having just finished his own testimony about the shell companies and money laundering schemes he'd unknowingly been part of. The experience had changed him too. He'd enrolled in accounting classes, determined to help other victims untangle financial crimes. "Ready to go home?" he asked, wrapping an arm around his sister's shoulders. "More than ready." As they walked toward the subway, Layla's phone buzzed with a text from Danny at the diner. "Saw the news. Table 7 is always yours if you want it back." She laughed, remembering the scared girl who used to jump at sudden noises and apologize for existing. That version of herself felt like someone from another lifetime. "What's funny?" Marcus asked. "Just thinking about how much can change in 6 months." "You mean how much you changed the world in 6 months?" At Columbia University, Layla had become something of a legend. The waitress who brought down a billionaire. Students sought her out for advice, professors used her case in their classes, and victim advocacy groups invited her to speak. She'd grown comfortable with the attention, using her platform to highlight other cases of corruption and abuse of power. The scared girl who'd hidden in shadows now stood in spotlights, speaking truth to power with the same quiet determination that had started it all. But the real change wasn't in her public profile. It was in the way she carried herself, the strength in her voice, the certainty that she could face whatever came next. 3 weeks later, Layla sat in her first-year constitutional law class, listening to Professor Williams discuss the balance between power and accountability. "Who can tell me," the professor asked, "what happens when institutions fail to police themselves?" Layla raised her hand. "Someone from outside the system has to step up. And if that person has no power, no resources, no connections, then they have to find another way." Layla's voice carried the weight of experience. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth, loudly enough and long enough that someone finally listens. Professor Williams nodded approvingly. "Ms. Carter speaks from experience, class. Her case has become a textbook example of how individual courage can catalyze systemic change." After class, a younger student approached her, a shy girl with nervous eyes who reminded Layla of herself 6 months ago. "I heard your story," the girl said quietly, "about what you did. I think something similar is happening at my part-time job. My boss is doing things, taking money, hurting people, but he's powerful, and I'm nobody." Layla looked into those frightened eyes and saw herself that first night in the diner. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was scared and alone." Layla's voice was gentle but firm. "You're not nobody. You're somebody who sees truth, and that makes you dangerous to people who profit from lies." "But what can I do? You're just the person who might save lives by speaking up. You're just the person who might prevent other victims. You're just the person who might be brave enough to do what's right." Layla squeezed the girl's shoulder. Trust me. Sometimes the quietest voices change everything. Sarah nodded, a spark of determination replacing some of the fear in her eyes. Will you help me? Every step of the way. That evening, Layla returned to her new apartment. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe. Paid for with the reward money she'd received for her testimony. Marcus had his own place nearby, finally stable and pursuing his own dreams. She opened her laptop and began typing. To anyone who feels powerless, who thinks their voice doesn't matter, who believes that one person can't make a difference, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. It was the first chapter of a book she'd been encouraged to write. Her story. The story of how an ordinary person had done an extraordinary thing simply by refusing to accept that injustice was inevitable. Her phone rang. Detective Mendez. Layla, we have a situation. Remember how Al-Fayed said this was bigger than him? Yeah. He wasn't lying. We've uncovered connections to organized crime syndicates in 3 countries. Human trafficking, arms dealing, things that make money laundering look like petty theft. Layla felt the familiar chill of danger, but it was tempered now by something else. Purpose. What do you need? A consultant. Someone who understands how these networks operate. Someone who's proven they can handle the pressure. When do we start? Mendez laughed. I knew you'd say that. Tomorrow morning. And Layla, this time we're going after all of them. After she hung up, Layla looked at herself in the mirror. The scared waitress was truly gone now, replaced by someone who'd chosen to make fighting injustice her life's work. Her reflection showed the scars, a thin line on her cheek from the concrete fragments that night in Union Square, shadows under her eyes from too many sleepless nights during the trial. But it also showed something else: strength, determination, peace. She'd found her voice that night in the diner when Kareem first whispered his threat. But more than that, she'd found herself. The girl who'd apologized for existing had become a woman who insisted on living, loudly, boldly, and on her own terms. Outside her window, New York hummed with the energy of 8 million stories, 8 million dreams, 8 million people trying to make their way in an imperfect world. Some of them were victims who needed advocates. Some were predators who needed to be stopped. And some were ordinary people who just needed to be reminded that they had the power to choose which side of justice they wanted to stand on. Layla had made her choice. Tomorrow, she would help others make theirs. But tonight, she was simply a young woman who'd learned that the most extraordinary thing about courage wasn't that it was rare. It was that it lived inside everyone, waiting for the moment when staying silent became more frightening than speaking up. She returned to her laptop and continued writing. I was told to stay silent and be rewarded. But silence only protects the guilty. And here's what I learned. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter. The king fell not because he was defeated by armies, but because one person refused to pretend not to see his crimes. That person could have been anyone. That person could be you. Layla found her voice when it mattered most. Subscribe so you never miss stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Sometimes we think we're powerless against corruption, against abuse, against systems designed to silence us. But Layla's story reminds us that the most dangerous person to a tyrant isn't another tyrant. It's an ordinary citizen who decides to tell the truth. Your voice has power. Your witness matters. Your courage can change the world. One conversation at a time. One truth at a time. One brave choice at a time. The kings are only as strong as our silence. Speak up, speak out, speak truth. The world is listening.